We can get started now. Let's start with the prayer.
Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarot tam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome back to the Yoga Sutra sessions. So today we will be covering verses 13, 14, and if possible 15. And the interesting topic, karma. We will try to have a holistic picture of that whole karma theory quickly, because we had done that multiple times, but we'll try to recap. But before we get into that, as always, let's try to ground ourselves where we left so that it will be clear. So, if you look back, this particular chapter of the Yoga Sutra is known as Sadhana Pada. The goal of this chapter is to introduce us the practical step-by-step process by which one can experience the state of samadhi. If you recall, the theme of the first chapter of the Yoga Sutra was samadhi, and we understood samadhi as a well-placed state of mind. It's not a particular specific state of the mind. It's a continuum, starting with a state where I have complete control over my mental activities, to the highest end, where I can suspend all my mental activities and experience the true divinity within me, or experience the real self within me. That is the range of samadhi, starting with this state of Chitta Vritti Nirodha to the final state of Asamprajnata Samadhi. We had that deep discussion. And then we said, anybody can talk about any promise, but if you don't give a path, how you can reach that experience?
Will you be quiet for a second?
How can I?
Can you mute it, because I can't either focus.
If you're not talking, if you can mute, that would be great. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So we said we need to have a practical means, and that is why the Sadhana Pada was introduced. And the first topic we introduced in the Sadhana Pada was a topic called Kriya Yoga. So that's where one need to start our spiritual sadhanas. So the Kriya Yoga is mentioned as a means to remove the obstacles for one to reaching the samadhi. Kriya Yoga will not take you to samadhi directly, but Kriya Yoga will remove all the obstacles in our path towards samadhi. What is Kriya Yoga? We had that elaborate discussion. 3 things: Tapa, Swadhyaya, and Ishvara Pranidhana. This is the sadhana for removing the mental impurities. Tapa, we understood tapa as the mental disciplines required. Swadhyaya is the study and understanding of the scriptures. And Ishvara Pranidhana is a powerful attitude one need to cultivate, recognizing an order in the universe and our ability to surrender our actions as an offering to that order, and whatever results you get apart from your best effort, right? You put your best effort, and whatever you get as the results, It's an attitude to accept it rather than fighting with it. So these two attitudes, Ishwara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi, comes under the Ishwara Pranidhana. That is the surrender to Ishwara. More than conventionally, oh God, I love you, or I praise you, etc. So these will help you to reduce the impact of the kleshas. Kleshas means obstacles towards the samadhi. So once again, we start with Kriya Yoga as a means to remove or mitigate the obstacles towards samadhi. And Kriya Yoga consists of 3 steps: tapa, discipline; swadhyaya, understanding the science and the logic behind what we do; and Ishwara Pranidhana is an attitude of surrender towards Ishwara. So this will reduce these kleshas or the obstacles. And we remember, if you remember, we studied 5 different types of kleshas. Can anybody recall what are all the 5 different kind of kleshas we talked about? Avidya, asmita, ragadvesha, and abhinivesha. These are the 5 kinds of, it's very simple, right? Just think about these things. Kriya Yoga is to remove the obstacles towards samadhi. And what is Kriya Yoga? Tapa, Swadhyaya, and Ishwara Pranidhana. And what is the impact of Kriya Yoga in us? It removes or mitigates the obstacles or the impediments. And what are all those impediments or the obstacles are? It is avidya, asmita, ragadvesha, abhinivesha. Avidya means my ability to see what is truth and what is not truth. What is real, what is unreal. Who am I not? So this is my ability to understand things properly in the larger context, right? A classic example is when I see in a dark alley a rope, I can mistake it as a snake. So that's avidya, and I get frightened, I get all sorts of painful experience because I'm not seeing things properly. So when I don't see things properly in the worldly life, it creates problem. It creates painful experience. It creates reaction in me. It creates unhealthy mental attitude. This is the problem with avidya. So when I don't see things as they are, right? We always say that perception is a reality, and we always go with our perception. It might be true that the person in front of you don't have any negative intention towards you. But if you see that as a negative intention, my feeling, my response, and my thinking will be based on that he is a hostile person. It doesn't matter whether he is a friendly person or a hostile person. My perception drives my experience. And if I make an error in my perception, it can create problem. This is the problem of avidya. And I don't have to explain. This is the whole psychology problem, right? Why do you need a therapist? What is the need of this psychotherapy? All the therapy sessions you go. Is the therapist going to change the situation for you? Absolutely not. Right? The therapist will guide your vision in such a way that you yourself can see the things properly so that your problem is solved. So the job of a therapist is to guide your vision. What is the vision? From avidya to vidya. That is all. That's all he does in a limited sense. But no therapist can show you who you are. That needs a larger therapy. And that is called a spiritual therapy. And that's where the Yoga Sutra, Bhagavad Gita, all these scriptures come into picture. It helps you to see who you are. If you don't know who you are, your thoughts, emotions, actions, and feelings will be driven by your understanding of who you are. Right? That's the problem. The classic scriptures, the Ashtavakra Gita, and I always refer a book also, right? Janaka and Ashtavakra, written by Ashrafji. It's a beautiful book. In that book, there is a beautiful episode written. It's there in the Ashtavakra Gita also. King Janaka feels that he is in a dream. In the dream, he feels that he's a beggar. He's one person who is begging. He don't have any money. He is hungry, and he is just waiting in a charity place for a meal. In a long queue, he is so much worried about that one meal because he's so hungry. He thinks that I'm so helpless. But who is he really, in fact? He is the one who is doing all the charities in that country. But if he don't recognize that, it's a cause of suffering. And that is avidya. You don't know who you are. You don't know what exactly you want. And as a result, the whole life becomes a big suffering. So this is avidya. And asmita is what? Your wrong identity with yourself. You think that you are the body. You think that you are the mind. You think that you are the intellect. And you fail to recognize the fact that body, mind, and intellect are the tools given to me to live the life in this world. But that's not the end of me. We talked about this a lot. That is asmita. You take the scene as the seer. The scene is the body, the mind, and intellect. They are not the real seers. So that's asmita. And raga is the binding attachment. There is nothing wrong in thinking that I need that food or that money or this house or that job. It's okay. But if I have binding attachment, my state of being happy, if that is entirely dependent upon that, that's a problem. This is a problem. So that is binding attachment and binding aversions. Something you don't like, something you want. That is raga and dvesha. They are complementary. And apinivesha is what? Since you mistake yourself as this body, what happens? You're extremely scared of death. In other words, you're extremely addicted to continue this life. Yes, this life has to continue as much as possible. You have to do everything. But wait for a second and think through that. How much you can extend this? Remember last week I told you a story of a lady. According to the science, she's the one maximum lived around 124 years or something like that. That's it. How much you can stretch? Let's say that if medical science advances and let it be, like let it get advanced and let the longevity increases. But let's say that if 80 years is the average life expectancy now, how much you can stretch? Maybe 100 years, maybe 150 years, but even that will come to an end. And I said, even avatars has to come and go. Forget about all the people. Where is Krishna? Where is Christ? Where is Muhammad? Where is Buddha? Everybody has to come and go. Where is Shankaracharya? Where is Vivekananda? Everybody has to come and go. And it's a fact that we will have to go also. So if you are so much addicted to that particular life, you are setting yourself to suffering at a later point of time. So this is the 5 kleshas. And these kleshas, with the practice of Kriya Yoga, you can mitigate. You can get that understanding. Because Swadhyaya is going to give you the real nature, and tapas, disciplines, that is going to help you to train your mind, and Ishvara Pranidhana is going to give you that maturity. This is very important. And this is pretty much similar to the Karma Yoga. And if you ask me, the most powerful practices I have ever seen in my life is Karma Yoga. It can be practiced by anybody and everybody. You don't need to be a master. Even meditation, everybody will have, some people will have difficulty and struggles. But Karma Yoga, no, everybody can practice without any easy. It's easy to practice. At least to get started is easy. Of course, the higher level of Karma Yoga is difficult, but the beginning stage of the Karma Yoga is very easy. And what is the problem of these kleshas? That's what we saw in the last class. Last verse, around verse 11, we said that these kleshas can add more karmas into our pool of karma called karmashaya. So we need to understand that law of karma a little bit. So we will come back and try to continue this discussion there. So we covered all these topics. We went up to verse 12. That is what we covered last week. Kleshas influences karma. So this is where we saw
क्लेशमूलः कर्माशयो दृष्टादृष्टजन्म वेदनीयः क्लेश
So we saw this.
सतिमूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः
One more time, let's listen.
सतिमूले तद्विपाको जात्यायुर्भोगाः.
So this is the impact of karma. So I'm going to holistically explain this karma in a minute, but let's read the verse, understand this verse, and let's pause for a second and try to walk through the whole karmic life cycle in a few minutes. So it tells these kleshas, what happens? Means the root of these kleshas, sati mule. Mule means it is root. The root of these kleshas, as long as they exist, because when the kleshas are there, that's for example, what is kleshas? Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, apinivesha. As long as they exist in your mind, what happens? It will fructify as karmas. And that is what tat vipaku. Vipaku means it is fructifies as something as the next type of birth you get, the span of life you get in the next life, and the life experience you encounter. So, in other words, let me make it very simple. What Patanjali is saying is that these kleshas can create karmas in your mind, different types of karmas, which are not so conducive. And that karmas will eventually impact the type of life you are going to have in the future, the type of life experience you are going to have in the future, and the life of longevity, the longevity of the life you are going to have in the future. In other words, the kleshas will influence karma, and the karma is going to influence your life. So let me pause here. Simple, verse is simple, but let's try to understand. See, let's take a step back. Let's make it as much as interactive and discussion here. So unmute yourself, participate in the discussion, and ask as many questions as possible, because we want to understand the law of karma very well. Lot of time, law of karma or this karma theory is pretty much unique to the Indic dharmic traditions. So Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, all these schools, one of the central doctrine of these traditions are law of karma. We need to understand. And when you take about the Semitic religions like Islam, Christianity, or everything else, they do have a different model. And one of the challenge we have is, sometimes we look at this karma theory through a model developed by this Semitic culture. So you look into the karma theory through a model developed by this Semitic culture. It will be very hard for you to understand. So you need to look into the karma theory through the tools and frameworks developed by the Vedic tradition. Then only you will understand the karma theory. So I want to spend some time, even if you don't progress much today, it's fine. When we go back today, we should have a good understanding of this law of karma. So next 30-40 minutes, let's try to understand this law of karma. So please unmute yourself and try to participate in the discussion as much as possible. So let me start with a simple question. So you can put the whole different spiritual traditions into two buckets. One is the Indic tradition and the non-Indic tradition, maybe the Abrahamic tradition, whatever it is. Let me ask you, is there any religious tradition in the world or any spiritual tradition in the world which do not believe the existence of yourself post-death?
No, like Christianity talks about afterlife.
Every if at all there is a religious tradition.
But they don't talk about rebirth, right? They don't talk about rebirth.
No, they don't talk about rebirth. I'm coming back to the same point, Amisha. But everybody in the world, if at all it is a religion, believes that something survives the death.
Yes.
What exactly is the path of your post-death journey? There is differences. What happens to something to you, where exactly you end up, there is differences. What is the final destination? There are differences. What is the means to get into that final destination? There are differences. But let's take a pause, second moment of pause, and try to understand that every tradition in the universe, every religion in the universe believes that something survives the death. What is that something? There is difference, but something survives the death. If you think that it is wrong, every religion will stop that. It's a statement of fact, right? Christianity talks about a day of judgment. Islam talks about means going to heaven or hell. Every Judaism believes that your soul survives. Every religion thinks that. So when somebody say that I don't believe in reincarnation or law of karma, simple thing you need to ask is, what is your alternative? Do you think that something survives the death? Yes, they also believe that. So don't feel that this is something inferior. Everybody believes that. Point number one. Now, point number two. Is there any scientific evidence that something survives death? You may say that, oh, I read a reincarnation story. When Shakuntala Devi, born in Maharashtra, she started talking about somebody in Gujarat. You talk about so many examples. Let's be very honest. Is that considered as a scientific theory?
No.
Absolutely not. These are anecdotes. And a million anecdotes is not a replacement for scientific validation. What is scientific validation? It has to be proven, repeatedly proven, in a controlled environment. Do you agree?
Yes.
So this is not scientifically proven. Can it be disproven? No. You cannot prove it or you cannot disprove it. So here is the challenge. You are puzzled with an idea which cannot be proven, which cannot be disproven also. So that's where a faith matter comes in, or a belief comes in. If you know that 1 + 1 = 2, you say that it is my belief that 1 + 1 = 2.
No.
Is that a fact?
No.
Right? So suppose you say that North Brunswick schools starts at 8:30. Is that a belief or is that a knowledge? 100% verified knowledge. So what is a belief versus what is a truth or a knowledge, confirmed knowledge? Belief, I would say that it is an assumption with full faith, which can be subjected to correction upon verification. I'm quoting the definition of Shankaracharya. His definition on belief. He tells that belief is something that you assume to be true, but which can be subjected to correction upon verification. Correct?
Yes.
Now, some of these beliefs are verifiable right now. Some of them are non-verifiable. Right? Some of them are verifiable. Some of them are non-verifiable. Do you survive yourself post-death. It's an assumption, it's a faith, or it's a belief, which can be subjected to correction upon verification. But when that verification happens, I can verify it only after my death. So right now, there is no way for me to verify that belief. Now, when you have a non-verifiable belief, what makes you to accept a belief? What is the criteria that tells you to take a belief and not or reject a belief? Somebody comes back and tell you that, okay, those people are cursed people. You don't want to support them. Or if I cross the ocean, I will end up in hell. Or if they don't believe in my God, they are going to go to hell. These are all can be beliefs. People follow this. Yes. So there is a simple criteria given in the Vedas. Vedas tells you accept a belief if that belief is beneficial to you and other people. Otherwise, you don't need to. Otherwise, you accept only the verified facts. So a belief you accept if that is helpful to you. Now, law of karma is a belief. Definitely, it is not a verified truth and it cannot be proven. The anecdotes, as I said, like it's good, but it's not a proof. It's not a proof as long as you cannot experiment and validate this in a controlled lab. So if that is the case, should I believe in law of karma? There are three possibilities. One is you assume that this life is pretty much limited to this life. That's what Charvakas believe. They think that when this body ends, everything ends. So they say, even if you do unethical things, try to enjoy this life because there is no other life. That's one way of thinking. Is that going to help me? Is that going to help the society?
No.
Why should I follow a value system? I should try to do everything and enjoy this life as much as possible if I follow that. Now, the second theory is the Abrahamic religions theory. What do they say? You have a soul, and when the body dies, the soul won't die. And what is Christianity saying? Your soul will be in a suspended animated state. Your soul will continue, but it will be suspended for a period. And there is a concept called the day of judgment. And on the day of judgment, all these souls will be resurrected and they will be given a body. And depending upon the judgment you get, you will end up in a permanent heaven or a permanent hell. Okay. So the question is, how do you judge a child who passed on day one? How do you judge somebody? How do you judge every people if the lifespan is only this life? A child who is died on day one, and a person who has lived 120 years follows the same judgment. Second thing is that why the child who was born and died on the day one, if everybody is God's creation, why some people get some greatest opportunities in life and some people get everything exactly in the opposite direction? Why there is so much of difference in this world? Sometimes There are so many facts in life which cannot be explained. I heard a story, somebody was telling me this real incident. One of our friends was studying in Chennai, and he said he was traveling from Chennai to Madurai, like some 5 students were traveling. So the bus was there, and one student was sitting on the rightmost side of the seat. After some time, an old man came to him and said that, "Oh child, can I sit here? Because I feel very much suffocated on the other side. I'll sit. Can you give me the window seat?" The child said, "Yes." You know what happened? In 10 minutes, there was an accident. What happened? The 4 people sit on the 4 front window seat people passed it. So what happened? This old man, he was forcing himself into death. And the child, what happened? Somebody miraculously saved him. One way of explanation is everything is coincidence. That won't hold true. Logically speaking, if that is the creation of a God, why the God is so much partial to a set of people and completely blessing to the other people? You cannot just say that this is creator's choice and you don't have anything. That sounds to be unfair. So this is the second alternative explanation. And the third alternative explanation is what? I am responsible for who I am. And I am responsible for making my future. I get what I do, for what I do. What I reap is what I see. So, famous verse. So, which is more logical? I know that nothing can be proven, but nothing can be, means which is more logical and which is more beneficial? It is the karma theory. In 1 minute, 5 minutes, if you close your eyes and think, you know that this is much logical than any other alternatives available in the world. So, per the Vedic tradition or the Indic tradition, we believe that the lifespan of an individual is not just limited to this life. There are multiple lives. Can you prove it? Absolutely not. But is that healthy to believe? Absolutely yes. That's what Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, said. Yeah, this is the most logical and acceptable theory. So what we believe is that whatever we do in any of our life, right? Karma, the definition is anything you do with a karana is karma. What is karana? Karana means an instrument. What are all those instruments you have? One is your physical body, meaning organs of perception, organs of action, 5 organs of perception, 5 organs of action, the mind, intellect, everything is karanas. Anything you do with any of these karana is known as karma. So when you see something, it's a karma. When you speak something, it is a karma. When you feel something, that is a karma. Whatever you do with a karana is karma. And any karma you do, whether it is an action, physical action, or whether it is a speech you do, or whether it is a mental activity you do, they are all karmas. And each of these karma will leave an impression in your mind. What is that impression? This impression have a potential to manifest itself in the future. In other words, let me explain this in a simple way. Every karma you do, it has 2 types of results. One is called drishtaphala and the other one is called adrishtaphala. Let's say that I cheat somebody $100. What is the drishtaphala? I gained $100. And somebody else lost legitimately, the $100 belongs to you. Correct? This is the Drishtaphala. And sometimes the Drishtaphala is what? IRS or the police will recognize and get hold of me. That is also potential Drishtaphala. But along with the Drishtaphala, there is another Drishtaphala that will be accounted in your pool of karma. That is known as karmashaya. In the previous verses, we said, any karma we do, it leaves an impression in your karmashaya. So this karmashaya is known as a pool of karma, which records or which stores the impact of every karma I do. And at the end of my life, what is going to happen? What is going to determine my next life? It is a subset of the karmas from these karmashayas. So let's say that your karmashaya has 100 karma. At the end of your life, some algorithm, some logic will pull up a subset of those karmas. Let's say that 10 karmas out of this karmashayas. And that is going to determine your next life. This is the core belief of Vedanta, yoga, and all Indic tradition. Outside of Vedanta and yoga, even Buddhism, Jainism also shares the same view. Sikhism, all these Indic religions shares the same view. What is that? This karma or the kleshas will contribute to the karmashayas, and this karma will fructify itself as the next birth, a subset of that. So what type of birth one gets, it will be determined by the subset of karmashayas we take. And what is the span of life of my next life? It will be determined by the span of karma. And what is the type of experience I'm going to get? It is determined by the pool of karma. Now, you must sit and ask, oh, if that is the case, am I just a helpless creature in the hands of karma? No. The karma is going to determine the type of life you have, right? The type of body you get, the type of intelligence you get, the type of skills you get, the type of inclinations you get. Correct? That's all. But with that, how am I going to play my game? Whose hand is that? It is in my hand. Let me take the analogy of a cricket. Right? So let's say that I'm a batsman. The skill of my batting is absolutely initially given by the karma. Can I enhance that with practice? I can sit idle and don't do nothing. Or I can practice, I can identify the right skill in me, and I can practice it. So that is in my hand. Next thing. When I go to bat in a ground, what ground I'm going to play, the nature of the pitch, it is karma. Sometimes you are so lucky that you get into a batting wicket. The ball won't turn, you can hit it freely. But that's not the case always. That's not the case always, right? You may, let's say that you won't get the toes in a wicket, which is very difficult to bat. As a batsman, you're given an environment, the ball is not given to coming to the bat at all. But is that means that you'll have to get out zero? You have to be playing, you have to play a good game, and still you should be able to navigate through the life. So it's in Mahabharata, this topic was very well explained through a conversation between Yudhishthira and Panchali, Draupadi. Yudhishthira tells that it's like you're trying to cross a river, right? So depending upon the karma, let's say that the current of the water determines the favorability and non-favorability. If you have done sort of good karmas in the past life, and if your prarabdha has a lot of punya or the merits, what happens? Sometimes you don't have to even put the effort. The current will automatically take you to the other side. So the work you need to do is completely supported by the nature. It's like a batsman is getting a completely batting pitch. Or if you're a bowler, you're getting a completely favorable pitch. Even if you throw the ball, it will turn 90 degrees. That's the type of environment you get. And you might have experienced that in your life also, right? Sometimes what happens, things are completely aligned. You write a test, you get it, and you get your right place at the right time. You get all the jobs, promotion, dum, dum, dum. That's one thing. What is the other path? You may do everything in the world, but nothing will materialize. This is karma. The karma explains so many factors. If you don't have this karma theory, there is no way for you to explain how the life happens. So the karma theory tells that sometimes things won't happen. So what happens? Either you may have to retreat, you may have to change the course of action, or you may have to continue to do the good things. So the karma theory gives explanation to so many things. So this is the karma theory. So this karma theory, what happens? So there are a few technical terms. The pool of karma, which is the collection of the entire karma, is known as karmashaya. And the karma, all the karma stored in the karmashayas is known as sanchita karma, stored karma. And what is going to determine my next life? It is known as prarabdha karma. And whatever karma I accumulate when I am in a prarabdha, when I am in a life, it is known as agami karma or kriyamana karma. So sanchita karma, prarabdha karma, kriyamana karma. And this is how the life goes on. There is no surprises, and the God is not partial to anybody, and the God is not cursing anybody. And I am responsible for who I am, and I have an opportunity to have a better future by doing the right karma. So this sutra re-emphasizes that law of karma into our life, and Patanjali very clearly tells that when you are under the spell of these kleshas, asmita means avidya, asmita, ragadvesha and abhinivesha, it creates more and more negative karmas, and it will impact the type of birth you have in the next life and the lifespan and the experience clearly. Let me pause here. This is probably one of the most complicated subject in our literature. So any questions? Let's discuss.
Rajesh, one clarification. So, related to that, in our Indic, culture, we have this idea that the birth is not always like we go through multiple, like a single cell organism to like the human, right? So that also is determined by our karma or something like that. Is another we believe we have.
Absolutely.
So how do you correlate that with?
Yeah. So what happens? So see that there is a just like an evolution, right? So there is an organic evolution and there is a psychosocial evolution. So let's say that what is how do you explain? Like suppose you're born as a tree, right? So what happened? How you explain it? Again, these are all explanation without any proof. I cannot just prove it or disprove it. So one way of explaining it is you have a lot of karmas which needed you to fructify that. For example, then what happens? You may get the birth of a tree. So that tree, what happens? It won't accumulate anything positive or negative because tree is not consciously doing any karma. You accumulate a karma only through a human life because animals and plants and everything just programmed to do things. They are not consciously doing anything. So what happens? You may have a few karmas which needs to be exhausted. So as a result, you get a tree life, and at the end of the tree life, what happens? That much negative karma is gone, and you come back and you try to do something. On the other side, right? So this is the negative side of it. The positive side of it is what? Suppose you have a lot of good karmas. What happens? They say that this is the Hindu concept of heaven. The Hindu concept of heaven is only a mental experience, not the permanent heaven or hell called out by the Abrahamic tradition. So we say that the heaven, you get a heaven when you have too much of good karmas. What happens? It will fructify itself as a great experience. You get all, you may gain all these pleasures and everything in a life. What happens? But that is also not permanent. Just it's like you're going to a holiday trip in Switzerland. You cannot work there. You have to go with some fund you earn here. And when that fund overs, you will come back. Like that, you go to heaven. Heaven means you get a life with such a great experiences. And once that punya exhausts, the life is over, you have to come back. So out of all the lives, only human life can try to change the karma. So this is the way of explaining it. But any explanation I do, it will have some limitations, because you are sitting in a finite world and you're trying to explain the whole life cycle of birth and death. It is very hard. But understand that what I found favorability for this karma theory is, as I said, out of all the alternatives, this is far more superior in logic and common sense. Second thing is what? It has to, because something can be above logic, but cannot be against the logic. If you think that everybody is having different life because of God's will, what type of God will is that, right? So that's one thing. Second thing is that it gives me responsibility and it gives me an opportunity, right? I can be more responsible. I can do things right. So if everybody believes in law of karma, what is going to happen? Naturally, the world, people will be following dharma, because they are not looking at this life as a short span of this life. They know that, yeah, I need to be good for my own sake, and it makes everybody responsible. And the third thing is, it gives me answer to a lot of burning questions. Otherwise, I find it difficult to answer, because sometimes, most of the times, you feel that why me, right? I'm a good person. I have even seen that a lot of people who believes in God suddenly turns into agnostic because of some life experience. And I sympathize for them. And it's understandable, because in this life, knowingly they haven't done anything. But sometimes the suffering people goes through, my God, it's too much. Look at the people attacked by these terrorists.
Yeah.
Look at the poor people of Sri Lanka. My God. Somebody else's mistake, all the community suffers. Look at a person born in Afghanistan. Look at a woman born in Afghanistan now. What a life it is. Is it their mistake? So it gives me some hope. Yes, this time is difficult, but I just need to be patient. I need to do the right things so that I can get out of it. So this is the beauty of karma theory.
Yeah, just another point related to this is, Rajesh, like you said, when we have to follow which one is right or wrong, the Vedic tradition gives us an indication, like if it works for you, if it is beneficial, then you take it. So the flip side of that is, sometimes, like as you just explained, the thing in Afghanistan or something, like, it works for somebody. They just try to take it, and then, but it is beneficial for them, but it may not be beneficial for others. So, but the only way that, that can be a good thing is if they believe in the law of karma, like whatever they
Absolutely.
do. Yeah, otherwise it will be like, it works for me. It is my belief. So, and
yeah, what I said is the choice, right? If something is a fact, you have to follow. If you know that it is 100% fact, you see that. What I'm saying is that there are certain things which cannot be proven or disproven. And that's where I was very honest, because some people will say that karma theory can be proven. And I wanted to be very intellectually honest here. You cannot prove it. You cannot disprove it. And when you have it, because see, that's why I started with the definition of what is a reality versus what is a what you call the belief. Moksha is a reality you can experience here and now. There is always, if you put enough effort and if you understand, there is a possibility that you experience the truth here. But there is no way for you to validate the law of karma, because how do I know that I survived the death? Only after the death. So this is a post-mortem thing. And when there is a belief which cannot be verifiable, the best way to take it is look at that. How logic, if that is that completely against logic, compare the alternate logic and look at this. And the second thing is that beneficial to me? So this is the criteria given by our rishis, ancient rishis, to accept a belief. And I was so impressed to see this the way it is presented, right? If I kill somebody for spreading my religion, is that logical? And is that beneficial for the humanity? Absolutely not. So such belief, don't take it. Even if it is preached by some Vedic scholars or some rishis tells you to do this, our tradition tells don't follow. Don't follow anybody blindly. You have to put these checks and balances. And you all have to be proud, right? There's no culture in the world which tells you this way. They say follow these things. If the war for spreading religion is holy, why you kill that person? Because he didn't. It's so sad, right? So I don't know whether you heard this story. In Texas, somebody said like Mahatma Gandhi is a nice person, but he won't go to heaven because he didn't born in our tradition. Despite the fact that he is the best human in the world, they accept. What type of logic it is? What type of healthy belief system it is? Now, when they say that Mahatma Gandhi do not go to heaven, is that a verifiable belief or a non-verifiable belief?
Non-verifiable.
Non-verifiable. So when you have such non-verifiable belief, if you put the second test, this rule will fall flat.
Yes.
It won't work well. That's why. But the problem is people do not understand this law of karma properly. They take the law of karma as fate. Is it fate? If it's fate, means you don't have any choice to get out of it. Here it says that no, it's your life. It's not that it is going to control you. It will have some effect on you, but you do have a choice to react, to act on the given circumstances. As I said, like the pitch is very difficult to bat, but still you can bat. If you are a little bit more careful, you're conscious and you're prayerful, you can still navigate through that situation, right? Yudhishthira and Panchali's conversation, he tells, let's say that the current is so much against. If you swim, what is going to happen? The current will take you completely away. There are two possibilities. There is no current. So your effort, if you need to, let's say that to cross the river under normal circumstances, you need to put 10 units of work. There is no current. By 10 units of work, you can go the other way. That means there is no influence of karma. But let's say that the positive karma, let's say that there is a lot of positive karma. The current is exactly in the direction where you want to swim, right? So like in that case, what is going to happen? If you need to put 10 units of effort, you may need to put only 2 units of effort. You will be reaching in the other side, right? You may have had that same type of experience in life, right? Suppose you study 10 questions for a test, exactly the same questions asked. You had that experience, right? You studied only 10 questions and all those 10 questions asked, you got grade A+. Sometimes what is going to happen? You studied the whole curriculum, but you are able to answer everything. That is the normal scenario. What is the abnormal scenario? You studied the entire book and left 5 questions. What happened? Exam says that 5 questions. That is the opposite scenario. So the karmas can come in different way. Now, what do I do if the karmas are completely in the opposite direction? So let's take the example of that swimming, right? So when the current is opposite to what you are driving, there are multiple ways. You can try some alternate strategies. Instead of swimming straight, you can swim in a different direction, right? So instead of 10 units, you may spend 50 units to cross the river, but still you can cross it. And sometimes, if you think that you cannot cross the river, try to move back sometime. Try to take some different course of action. So this understanding the sensitivity, how things are happening, and doing the right thing, that's a skill by itself. And the Ishwararpana Buddhi, Prasada Buddhi, the attitude of Karma Yoga is going to help you in developing that skill. Understanding your Swadharma, right? Where exactly you need to focus. That's a key skill. I remember this book called Atomic Habits. In that book, there is one chapter. The whole chapter is dedicated understanding your strength and where you need to focus. So it's a key prerequisites for any success in life. So they say, right? Let's take 2 examples. Let's say that if you put Sachin Tendulkar into a brain surgery course, is that going to work? No way. He was a failure in all the schools. You know that, right, Sachin? So the luck for him was, even though his brother was, I was reading his book. It's a nice book. His brother spotted his talent. If that was not there, he would have been a failure in his life. So each one of us has some Swadharma. We need to understand that and we need to do that. This is the larger context of karma. I know that we didn't progress much, but I thought it would be a great idea to revisit this karma in a end-to-end form. So let me go back and quickly recap, and we will continue from next week. But we said the sadhana is to gain samadhi or attain the state of samadhi. How can I attain the samadhi? I remove the obstacles. One of the greatest obstacle is the kleshas, because why the kleshas are going to impact the state of samadhi? Because the kleshas can add wrong karmas into my karmashaya, which can take my life into a different turn, and which can give me difficult situations in my life, which will make my life to focus on my progress very difficult. So you need to mitigate these kleshas, and 5 kleshas we talked about. Means avidya, asmita, ragadvesha, abhinivesha. And by practicing Kriya Yoga, the effect of this kleshas will be mitigated. And the biggest challenge with these kleshas are they are contributor to your karmashayas. And as you know, karmas are the one that determines my next life, the type of life, the experiences of my life. It will be determined by the karma. So this much is the topic we covered. So with that, let's just do the prayer, and then we will open up for the Q&A again, right? So let's finish up with the prayer.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.